and welcome back to my channel. In this video, as you may noticed, we're gonna start a new chapter. So we're gonna pick some random books and we're going to try to read them, of course, in ASMR style. Hopefully I don't set this on fire. So I love the sound of the pages. Lovely, even the smell. But sadly I cannot share this with you this time. So, you know this for sure. We're going to read The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. It's, in my opinion, for me, it's a little bit a difficult book. So, I'm going to try to do my best with this. First of all, I would say we can start with life and times. This, I think, will give us the background, like during those days when Oscar Wilde was writing books. Let's see. So, about his life, the context. So, we're gonna repeat this: life and times. About the author. Oscar Wilde had a narrated way with words and is often quoted to this day. He was known as a sharp wit, delivering lines that cut through conversation, making him at once popular and vilified, depending on the nature of those at the receiving end. Sadly for Wilde, it was his enemies that got the better of him at a time when it was illegal for men to have sexual relations with other men. Wilde was imprisoned and exiled for his sexual preferences. Wilde wrote only one novel, The Picture of Dorian Gray, as well as poetry and short stories, but he was first and foremost a playwright, and a very successful one at that. He is perhaps the best known for his play The Importance of Being Earnest. I hope I read it right. And his most well-known poem is The Ballad of Reading Gaol, which he wrote following his incarceration. I want to be honest, guys, I had no idea that my hero was homosexual. Absolutely nothing against this, I will point this out, but I had no clue about that. In my mind, it was a womanizer, but that's it. Wilde was born into a privileged Dublin family. He had a fairly uneventful childhood, but performed very well at university, studying at Magdalen College, Oxford. He was a student that he began to use his intellect to put others down, and as a result, many of his peers took a dislike back to him. He also began to cultivate an image for himself that could be described as outrageously camp in both appearance and conduct. It was the behavior of homosexuals such as Wilde that led to the word gay earning its modern meaning, because people began using the term in describing this tendency for guiding into mono. It was an euphemism that mutated over time. Needless to say, Wilde's effeminate and showy image, although entertaining to some, was thought immoral by polite Victorian society. For every person who celebrated his outlandish posturing, there was always someone else who wanted him to fall from grace. Despite Wilde's sexual orientation, it did its best to conceal it for fear of prosecution. This included his becoming betrothed and producing 2 sons. One of his sons sadly perished in World War I. Okay, a little bit sad beginning for our hero, Oscar Wilde. The other became an author himself by concealing his identity for many years, to his father's reputation and following in disgrace and downfall. While Wilde finally capitulated to his homosexual desires when he met a boy named Robert Rose and fell in love. We're really happy for Oscar Wilde then. He had undoubtedly known about his learnings, but managed to constrain himself until Rose appeared. Wilde is known to have relished an excitement that came from the danger of his situation. He had a number of further homoerotic encounters and became involved with a group of homosexual men who were secretly campaigning for reforms in the law to decriminalize their behavior. Unfortunately for Wilde, he had begun an affair with the son of the Marquess of Queensberry, and this proved his undoing. The Marquess blamed Wilde for perverting his son's sexuality and was determined to see Wilde prosecuted for his crimes. Ironically, it was Wilde who took the Marquess to court for criminal libel. Such was Wilde's overconfidence. Things backfired though, and Wilde found himself in the dock for gross indecency. He was sentenced to 2 years hard labor, which he served at Pentonville, Farnsworth, and Reading prisons. Following his manumission, Wilde took a new game and fled to Europe as Sebastian Melmoth. His experience as a convict had affected his health badly, and he survived for only 3 more years, dying at the age of 46 in Paris. Had his health been more vigorous, Wilde have seen a time when society forgave him for his indiscretions, for his talent as a writer was undisputed. As it was, he passed away before the dust settled, and a long time before homosexuality became decriminalized. Definitely a not so happy life for our amazing hero, Oscar Wilde. Now, a puff from my beloved cigarette in honor of Oscar Wilde, because if I'm not wrong, there's a quote from this book that says something like, "Nothing is more delicious than a cigarette," something like this. One day I'm sure we're gonna bump into this quote, aphorism, call it whatever. So let's jump into The Picture of Dorian Gray. Dorian Gray is a young and handsome man who becomes obsessed with the idea of beauty when he has his portrait painted. Everyone knows the story about this. He makes a wish that he might remain forever youthful, and that the portrait of him will age over time instead. Soon after the wish is made, he commits his first sin and discovers that the portrait has already begun to change in response to his immorality rather than to time passing. So we can say it looked like a nice bargain, but you don't bargain with the devil. Never. Gray realizes that he has license to do whatever he likes, so he does. Over the next couple of decades, Gray commits all manner of sins, including murder, until the portrait had become a hideous visage. Yet Gray himself has not changed in appearance since he made this wish. Eventually, Gray becomes tormented by his own behavior and attacks the painting with a knife. He is found stabbed to death, while the painting is restored to its original appearance. Wilde used the device of the painting to address various agendas. The most obvious message is that there is always a price to be paid for iniquitous and self-indulgent behavior, and they will catch up with you in the end. The painting is also a comment about the confessional in the Catholic Church, like the priest behind the confessional in the behind the screen. The painting absorbs Gray's sins, so I can walk away and continue with the picturing. Most of all, the story of Dorian Gray is autobiographical. Wilde saw that his own behavior was leading him down a path that could only end in disaster. The novel is a portent of his own abject end, yet it seems that he could not help himself and prevent it from happening. Dorian Gray might ordinarily be villain and a cat ultimately gets is just absurd, but as personification of doom. The moral of the story is be careful what you wish for, as Dorian Gray allows himself to be overrun by his own wickedness, by deferring responsibility for his actions. People are usually called into check by the consequences of their own misdemeanors, so that they learn empathy and sympathy. Without consequences, selfish inclinations are allowed to run riot and become amplified until the person has no control. That was happened to Dorian Gray, and that was Wilde is saying about his own plight. As a privileged and successful celebrity, Wilde is allowed to free rein, to do what he likes with impunity, but he can see that sooner or later he will become unstuck. Wow. Well, I have to say, I didn't know that much about this book, and I love all the aphorism that you can find here. Somewhere, of course, I have a book just filled with aphorism from Dorian Gray and I think Oscar Wilde in general, because I really appreciate this. Now, here we can find contents. So, chapter 1, chapter 2, and so on. I think for today we can try to read chapter 1 or a small part of it. Guys, is it nice when I touch the microphone? It might be too strong, so the line on the computer like skyrocketing, so I will try to edit. Otherwise, don't be too scared. Oh, yeah, we can continue with this, or maybe we can go. Yeah, I think now we can start with chapter 1. I don't speak English really well, so I will do my best because I take a look. I don't know who made, like, what is this, but someone, maybe my wife, decided to highlight some word. So, let's jump into it. Chapter 1. The studio was filled with the rich odor of roses, and when the light summer wind stirred and misted the trees of the garden, there came through the open door the heavy scent of a lilac, or the more delicate perfume of the pink flowering thorn. Oh, beautiful. From the corner of the divan of a Persian sallow box on which he was lying, smoking, as was his custom, innumerable cigarettes. That's me. Lord Henry Wotton could just catch the gleam of the honey sweet and the honey-colored blossom of a laburnum, whose tremulous branches seemed hardly able to bear with the burden of a beauty so flame-like as theirs. And now and then, the fantastic shadows of birds in flight flit across the long Dutcher silk curtains that were stretched in front of the huge window, producing a kind of moment of of momentary Japanese effect. What is a Japanese effect is the real question, and making him to think of those pallid jade-faced painters of Tokyo through the medium of an art that is necessarily mobile, seek to convey a sense of sweetness and motion. Guys, and if you know what they mean with like momentary Japanese effect, I mean, I don't know if this is the explanation, like that maybe they have like this immobile art, and even if it's immobile, it tends to give you the sense of sweetness and motion. No idea, but I would appreciate if you explain it to me in the comments down below. The sullen murmur of the bees shouldering their way through the long unknown grass, or cycling with monotonous insistence round the dusty gilt horns or the straggling woodbine, seem to make the stillness more oppressive. The dim roar of London was like the purple note of a distant organ. In the center of the room, clamped to upright easel, stood the full-length portrait of a young man of extraordinary personal beauty, I suppose. Let's see. Beauty. And in front of it, some little distance away, was sitting the artist himself, Basil Orwood, whose sudden disappearance some years ago caused, at the time, such public excitement and gave rise to so many strange conjectures. I need some water. Sorry, guys. Okay, let's be delicate. I think we can finish this page and we will continue next time, if you like this like format, let's say. As the painter looked at the gracious and comely form he had so skillful mirrored in his art, a smile of pleasure passed across his face, and seemed about to linger there. But he suddenly stopped, and, closing his eyes, placed his fingers upon the lids, as though he saw, to imprison within his brain some curious dream, from which he feared he might awake. "It is your best work, Basil, the best thing you have done," said Lord Henry languidly. "You must certainly send it next year to the Grosvenor. The academy is too large and too vulgar. Whenever I have gone there, there have been either so many people that I have not been able to see the pictures, which was dreadful, or so many pictures that I have not, again, was worse. The Grosvenor is really the only place. I don't think I shall send it anywhere," he answered, tossing his head back in that odd way that used to make his friends laugh at him at Oxford. "No, I won't send it anywhere." Lord elevated his eyebrows and looked at him in amazement through the thin blue reds of smokestack curl up in such fanciful whirls from his heavy opium-tainted cigarettes. I promise my cigarettes was not opium-tainted. Not send it anywhere, my dear fellow. Why? Have you any reason? What odd chaps you painters are. You do anything in the world to gain a reputation, and soon as you have one, you seem to want to throw it away. It is silly of you, for there is only one thing in the world worse than being talked about, and that is not being talked about. So, okay, I think this is an aphorism that I have in the book. So, let's read it again. Where is it? Okay. It is silly of you, for there is only one thing in the world worse than being talked about, and is not being talked about. Beautiful, I like it. A portrait like this would set you far above all the young men in England, and make the old men quite jealous, if old men are ever capable of any emotion. I know you will laugh at me, he replied, but I really can't exhibit it. I have put too much of myself into it. Lord Henry stretched himself out on the divan and laughed. Yes, I knew you would, but it is quite true, all the same. So, for today, we arrive only at page 2, but I promise we will continue with this. So, I hope you enjoy. I hope you enjoy this experience, and it helped you to relax, to sleep, to calm down, wherever it is. I wish you a good night, and see you in the next video.